Many congratulations as the Women and Child Development Minister and somebody who's been in politics for the last 20 years. This must be a particularly pleasing day for you and for all women representatives in Parliament, in state legislatures, that we have now passed this historic legislation, something that has been hanging fire for the last 3 decades or so. As a woman politician, as a woman representative of the people, what does a day like today mean for you? And of course, the fact that you shepherded the bill through the Lok Sabha and now through the Rajya Sabha, and the Modi government has got it done, something that the UPA and the Congress were not able to do. It must be particularly satisfying. But just in the overall historical context, what does a day like today mean for you and other women representatives of people?
This is a great day for us. We are jubilant for plenty of reasons. Firstly, there were some people who were of the opinion that we've been waiting for this decision for 27 years. I want to historically contextualize it. When we attained freedom from colonial rule, that is when many a woman, and this is a historical fact, walked up to those who are writing our constitution, that there is a need to constitutionally guarantee and there is a need for affirmative action for women vis-a-vis reservation. At that time, I'm sure these women recognized what was to transpire in the forthcoming years, but their opinion was not heeded to for some reason. Today is a day to pay homage to them. In the year 1971, the then government wanted to create a report on the status of women in the country then, and so that they can prescribe a policy for such women. That committee was constituted. If you look at the 1974 published report of that committee in chapter 7, I'm very grateful that we find a mention of the Bharatiya Janasangh stating emphatically that there is a need to constitutionally guarantee women in our country an opportunity to serve the country as leaders of tomorrow. And when Prime Minister Modi now brings this legislation to this new building, he brings it with a promise that this building will witness history. Who knew that history will be created? The most glorious chapter for women would be written in the first 72 hours. So I think that the fact that this is a legislation which is very well defined constitutionally, is framed so that the process that is to ensue also is brought to light in front of the people of our country. I think that is why today we celebrate not just the possibility, but the affirmation of reservation for women in our country.
Ma'am, so yesterday in the Lok Sabha, we saw how 454 MPs voted in favor, including all the opposition parties except one. But one demand that they had, most of them, was why is there no quota within quota, OBC quota for women of the OBC category, along with SC and ST reserve seats for women in the overall reservation for women. What would be the government's counter to that?
I think that the forked tongue in which the opposition speaks stands exposed. If you look at their proposal during the UPA era, that makes absolutely no mention of the OBC community, because even they know there is no constitutional provision as such. There is also no constitutional provision for reservation in the name of religion. That in itself is ultra virus of the constitution. There is a defined space for women in the SC/ST categories and reservation prescribed for them in the bill that Prime Minister Modi has passed in the Lok Sabha, which is waiting passage in the Rajya Sabha. There is also a defined timeline. If you look at the Congress's proposal by Mrs. Sonia Gandhi in page 2, 2B and 3B, you will find shockingly that what Sonia Gandhi had proposed was that women from the SC/ST and other women per se will not receive reservation for 15 years. In fact, she had curtailed the reservation to only 10 years. What is shocking more so is that the bill that was proposed by Sonia Gandhi had absolutely no constitutional process that was prescribed as to how you will reach a conclusion as to which seat is to be reserved where. This bill that has been passed in the Lok Sabha and is waiting passage as we speak in the Rajya Sabha defines the constitutional procedure for reservation. And I think that is why there was a deliberate attempt by the Congress party to ensure that the bill does not pass in the Lok Sabha when the Congress had numbers in government from 2010 to 14. And today there's a deliberate attempt for them to create a constitutional anomaly by demanding things that the Constitution doesn't permit.
Ma'am, and the other point of contention that was raised by many of the opposition speakers yesterday and today was, if this is going to get implemented only post the 2026 census and thereafter delimitation, and perhaps the earliest general election where this can be implemented is the 2029 general election, then why was the government in such a hurry to bring it in this session and in 2023?
Naka, you will appreciate that we will go into elections in a few months, hence a legislation that seeks a constitutional procedure vis-a-vis how processes and methodologies have to be laid out for delimitation, which will need a special emphasis and a whole implementation strategy by center and state, by also census. I think the process is so wide and the process is so cumbersome that if not today, when would the opposition have wanted the bill to come through?
All right, and one final word.
Not give the nation the process and procedurally the organization that have been constitutionally ordained for the process to prepare.
Yeah, go on. Finish your point. There was audio in between.
And I also think this whole obfuscation of the fact that why 26. Look at Article 82. My appeal to every viewer of your program right now. The Constitution is available digitally. Please read your own Constitution. In Article 82, it is clearly stated that the first published census after 2026 is when this particular process of readjustment and realignment of states of seats by the delimitation process can be undertaken. So there are only two reasons why the opposition has misled the country, and especially the Gandhi family. Either they have not read the Constitution or they have read the Constitution and want to deliberately dissuade the women of our country.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Many congratulations once again as a representative of the people. It indeed must be particularly satisfying that you were able to shepherd through.
It is a day of joy not only for women but also men and families particularly that have supported women in their lives to contribute to nation building, supported the aspirations and ambitions of women. And I'm particularly joyful that this is a day for young women who are our leaders of tomorrow. We look upon you now to lead us to a greater future.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us right at the top of brass tacks here on CNN News 18. That was the Union Women and Child Development Minister, Smriti Irani, with her thoughts and comments on how long this process took and the fact that the Modi government was able to pass this bipartisan legislation by almost near unanimous majority. In fact, in the Lok Sabha yesterday, it was 454 members of parliament who voted in favor of this, just 2 against. So it shows that even in such divided times, there are issues where our polity can come together. And it is of particular satisfaction that in the new parliament building, this will be the first major legislation that is passed. And that, of course, is one for the history books. Let's now shift focus to